Okay.
Didn't
Typically
understand what you
carved
said.
out.
Trey, can you say that
I'll
slower?
explain it
My
to
girl
you.
ears.
He specifically said that he would not attack Cash Patel.
Oh, would
Oh.
not.
Oh,
See, I
That was
because
the
want him
only
to.
individual that he singled out.
because
Okay, that's
because
actually your
Cash
fault,
Patel
dude.
is a
Because
person
you're
of
normally
color.
singling someone out.
He
Normally
used to
singling
listen to his
someone out means that you
podcast,
want to go for
probably.
him.
Probably like
What is
Phil.
yeah, that is an interesting thing. Why did he not? Why did he single out Cash Patel as the non-target?
Would you say deep?
But yeah, probably because like Patel's about to get fired.
Yeah.
It's like felt sorry for him. Thought, oh, he's not a real player.
It's even worse.
The deeper state. Y'all know about the deep state. What about the deeper state? Also, Chewy, Battlefield update with the current situation with me. So we got the options, stock options all figured out. So
Nice.
yeah, now it's just
All right, let me challenge you. What is your best state? That's the wrong answer. Oh, you cut out. Sorry.
And bothered in there. Yeah, that is a type of wrong answer. The thing is that everyone got the stock options email to them recently. I just still haven't clicked the email. Like the please exercise the options now because we're doing something corporate soon, so better exercise them now. That's the email. Right, plus the card link and stuff.
Now.
Do you guys,
I
if you
still
look at your
can't
strike
quite recall-
price, if you look at your strike price, and do you guys do like the internal valuation? You're supposed to do that, I'm pretty sure, but it depends on how big your company is. Like basically, Sega, just be careful. You can invoke alternative minimum tax when you exercise your options.
That's what I'll be doing.
And you'll need to confirm if they're
Anyway, that
ISOs
related
or
to that.
NSOs.
Okay, I will. So related to
Hero.
that, I got one of the investors called me because they went and visited a competitor, which they're also going to they will be making an investment in. Who I'll put it like this: I'm going to pre-plead the fifth. So no matter what you guess, it's going to be cannot confirm or deny. Just so you know.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah. So don't bother guessing. But then it's basically the valuation we were looking for, or like aiming for, in a roughly year would be like, like 100 million. Like that was the idea, achieve the goal, impress everyone, get 100 million valuation. But the competitors are very realistically, sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. I'm going to put the realistically later in the sentence. They're going to be raising at 2.5 billion. With achieving the same technical goal as we are, and that they're going to be very realistically raising at 2.5 billion. Like they will be raising, but it is a realistic raise, right? Yeah, which means that basically the actual sort of benchmark. So they're likely going to be achieving the technical goal first. But the good news is that the benchmark they're setting is way higher than what I was expecting, or what we were all expecting. And then it also additionally kind of validates the actual kind of technical and commercial concept in the sense that it makes it officially like a valid target, which means recruiting is also going to be easier, right? And it's going to be a lot easier to get bored top tists who are currently working at ASML and similar companies to go do something cool instead of do stuff that
Damn.
Like, oh my god, my heckin' 3.5 nanometer FinFET, oh, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
That's
cool.
pretty cool.
It would be sweet if
The other good news is that it scared the crap out of the CEO because the investor. Go ahead.
Oh no, I think you have a pretty extreme delay too, because like you stopped
I
like
think I do.
5 seconds after I stopped talking. Finish what you're gonna say.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Oh yeah, so the other 5 fucking seconds. Okay, so the other thing is that it also good news. It kind of scared the crap out of the CEO, who so far has been a little bit stingy. Like not exactly like exercising his stinginess, just sort of like it puts a black cloud over the concept of spending money. It kind of scared the crap out of him because the investor told me very, very, very clearly that we need to immediately be way more aggressive in spending and recruiting by like a factor of like you are walking, please start sprinting.
Yeah, why aren't you asking me my input and all of my very valuable data? Like,
It's
what the
completely
fuck?
irrelevant.
I haven't asked
Quality
anyone yet.
assurance
Sorry.
expert.
Sorry, I'll be quiet. Well, that's great news, Sega. But yeah, you should don't full autism the taxes shit. You can. There's only really one way you can get completely fucked, and that is exercising early, invoking. You want to exercise early so that you can get the clock on long-term capital gains ticking. But you probably already know this, but in case you don't, like the only way this can go wrong is you exercise a bunch of options. You have to pay taxes on that. The difference between your strike price and the fair market value. And if it's like if it 25x,
The good news is that
like anyway. Yeah.
oh yeah, no, this 25x is not going to be materializing anytime soon.
Sure, yeah, it's just
Well, what I mean is like that is yeah, that would be like obviously there's the fair valuation is not going to be changing until there is additional investment, right?
In that case, you really should sprint on exercising because you want to obviously while it's super low, but you want to pay taxes most likely. So just make sure you understand your taxes.
Yeah, the good news is that the investor who I'm like, kind of like my key contact there, like, I mean, like basically this investor tells me information that he says I should not tell the CEO because
Nice.
or rather cannot, because otherwise, there's more at play here, obviously, than just strict chain of command for like various reasons, right? Like, and I told the CEO that the investor told me information that I cannot tell you for certain principled reasons, which involves like info contamination. I cannot allow them to become contaminated by this information because then that would put my source in jeopardy and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So he knows. But yeah, the investor told me information that it's legal, so he's not breaking any NDAs, right? But it's basically like, if I tell anyone, then except for like what the resulting action should be, then that would be like a major mega break of Brad faith, and everyone would be like upset with him. So I have to keep a lot secret, but I can obviously communicate what the end like takeaway action should be. So yeah. So anyway, I'm pretty close. So I have a pretty close relationship with the investor. So if I need to pay taxes, I could always just ask him like, hey, I'm gonna exercise these options, and if it ever if I did seriously fuck up, then I'd be like, hey, could you give me like $50,000 to pay taxes? He'd be just like, yeah, fine.
I mean, like it could be way worse than that if it truly does skyrocket.
It's definitely not going to be it's definitely not going to be me asking for $1 million to pay taxes, but I would say the most I could ever probably ask for him would be like $100,000 or something. But
just keep in mind, if it 25x's, I'm not saying you're saying that, but if you're expecting 100 mil cap and it's 2.5 billion, that would be a
is it a
25x from what
Vina,
you were already thinking was the
Well, yeah, that's
multiple
what
on
I'm
the
saying.
current valuation.
Is the wild expectation, like the unimaginably wild expectation, has been kind of upgraded, or I guess you can consider it downgraded to realistic expectation.
Which is good.
Which is good, because the funny thing is they're planning on raising it 2.5 billion, but depending on how the news of them potentially raising it 2.5 billion pans out, that might actually even boost the potential, like, micro industry cap even higher. Right, because like
The next question you'll have to decide is how much of a true believer are you? Like, are you going to be a full autist and
I'm not. I don't
white
care.
knuckle it? Okay, so you are going to be a true believer, full autist.
No. I'm saying I'm not a true believer. I don't care. My belief does not affect my desire to work on the project.
Okay, that actually means that you are a true believer in that, like you. So okay, what I mean is, are you going to sell some of it? If you have an opportunity to sell some of it, will you sell some, convert it to cash, which is basically shorting the company in exchange for diversification. But if you're a true
Of course, I would
autist,
short the company.
okay, that's good. You're not like a true autist. No, you are a true autist,
Well, no,
but you're
no.
not a.
The reason why I would short the company is because I don't care about making the money. I care about securing the money so that I can continue doing the core activity indefinitely.
Yeah, that's the right decision.
Yeah, like that's like.
But it's
I'm not
tricky
gonna...
though. You'll have to figure out what the. So what is that ratio between true believer and, gambling it? And that's every person's going to have a different answer to that question.
First things first about me is I hate gambling, and I'm very risk averse. But the second thing about me is that I do not have a linear view of money. So $10 million is not 10 times as good as $1 million. It's like probably only about twice as good. Well, there are certain thresholds. I'll just say that, I'll put it like this: $100 million is not 10 times better than 10. It's probably roughly twice as good or 3 times as good. So, so very first thing I would do at certain thresholds would just simply to short the company to secure certain thresholds. Right. After which you're taking linear risk, but you're not actually getting linear gain, right?
Yeah, no, I have the same calculation as you.
Yeah, or at least in terms of like practical gain. Because everything's scored in money, but twice as much money is not twice as useful as 1 times as much money.
Sure. Yeah, you just need to get above permanent underclassmanship, and then you can whimsy max.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation the other day too on the same topic with Sergeant something. He's got like an army profile pic. He's a cool guy. So the investor I was talking about, I guess he's just like mega quid maxed. He's been quid maxing for a while now, and now the quid is starting to weigh on him. Not exactly weigh on him, but like he has now become like he just
quid-phobic?
How would, not exactly quid phobic, but like quid careless. I mean, in a weird way, because if you just saw the line written down like transcript, I make so much fucking money, like that's the line. How would you imagine that kind of line would be said?
And if you're not a cleric, you don't get to claim one of those corners in that starting round.
Depends on the person, but I mean, what comes to mind is the Bezos
like generic
model.
Like
most
someone
people probably have a pretty positive tone. Most people.
Maybe like bragging or like trying to brag or something.
NPC Goymax are kind of
if you into like private aviation and cars and shit, you kiss away a
like, listen, bro, I make so much fucking money. You have no idea. Like, that's you'd expect it to be said. And this guy said it in this like incredibly disappointed, despondent, like almost like he wishes he could care but he doesn't, like mood. He said it like, like, and, you know, like there was some preamble, like, you know, like this was like obviously like this is literally an out of context line, right? But like he said it like,
I'm just
I'm
trying to
like,
keep it silent.
I make so much fucking money. It's like,
You may be
doesn't
able
matter.
to hide behind the column.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He said
No,
it because I said,
yeah.
Possibly.
yeah.
It-
He
it
said
goes
like
through
in
some
response to
fucking
me
wall, so I
saying,
can't
hey,
have
don't forget that, you know,
better.
if this is going to 25x, that's pretty good for you too. And he responded in a way that made it seem almost like he really kind of deeply, deeply wishes that he could care. And he's troubled by the fact that he doesn't.
Is that a plan, Paul?
Yeah, I think that's totally rational. I mean, unless you're true NPC, like just typical goy, only like jet skis, like, oh man, now I can get 50 jet ski. Like, you should be a little bit troubled once you've reached whatever that threshold that's above anything you would have imagined, because like
I think he
it comes
probably
back to
makes
what
like
is your life
15 million bucks a year or something.
Run into a corner and
I can't. The thing is, I can only guess because he can only guess because he probably doesn't know how much he's going to make this year, right? But like, you know what I mean.
spot here and the tag too. Yeah, it's until it's slowed like every fight.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is the Bezos quote about regret minimization. Like Bezos had the same problem. Bezos was like the youngest VP at DE Shaw in history. Like he would have been, you know, top tier, like he would have probably been a billionaire by the time he's like 60. But you know, he wanted to start. He heard about the internet. He wanted to do Amazon. Like it was important to him to take a chance at that in his life versus like goy maxing. And so that's how he made that decision. Like it was an easy I mean, for him it was actually an easy decision. But for other people that would be an impossible decision.
Well, I just realized
Charlie-
something interesting because we have this really interesting problem which you would really appreciate, and T12 might have a different opinion on. So I have been trying to bully everyone into getting the damn CNC machine up and running because we've had a brand new CNC machine sitting there for over 2 months. And it's long past the date where I need to already be using it for stuff. But the people are like, oh, I don't know, we need to get some contractors to install an air tube to go to the room and blah, blah, blah. Basically, there are like 2 major bureaucratic roadblocks involved in getting it running, and the people who would be in charge of resolving those roadblocks and like telling the contractors to like show up or like whatever aren't, at least not fast enough. And you know, they're kind of dragging their feet on it, and I'm like, hey, when is this like gonna be done? And the guy came to me and he's like, well, do you have any parts that you need? Like, do you have any files right now that you need done? And I'm like, no. And he's like, basically, I can explain the whole thing, but long story short, it's like, if you have no immediate use for it right now, then why do we need it up and running sooner rather than later, right? And I kind of tried to explain to him that, and I'll long story short this one too, the reason I need it is so that I can need it when I do, but simply not having access to it is preventing me from needing it. That's the short version, right?
Sure.
And it's really hard to explain the meta strategy behind why that is the optimal strategy, why that is like the actual, why that sort of strategy kind of is in many ways the difference between failure and success. And he could, of course, say, well, why don't we just get stuff machined, 4 days, 4-day turnaround local shop, or go get it, e-machine shop, stuff like that. And it's like, I wish I could explain to him that the psychological difference between having to send things off versus being able to privately fuck around and all of your mistakes are private is a big, big difference. Not having anyone to impress, basically, not having your work be judged is the #1 way to produce a lot of work, right? Or at least make rapid progress is when you don't think anyone's looking at what you're doing. That's when you can be stupid in ways that are very productive. Or at least try dumb stuff. You don't want anyone being like, why are we spending $400 to get this part machined for something that might not even work on a machine that you might not even complete?
All right.
Like if it's like some sub machine, like
I mean,
the
but isn't this
sub-assembly might be outmoded.
this isn't a super abstract, right? This is just the whole advantage of rapid prototyping.
Yeah,
Like, you can't
is,
rapidly prototype on it. I mean, you could 3D print some stuff, but if you
the
wanted to
problem is
rapidly
that
make
the guy who would be in charge of resolving those roadblocks for me, it is simply difficult for him to do so. Like literally, it is difficult. Like there is difficulty that is in the way, and so he obviously is highly emotionally motivated with decent reasons, and that is a very kind of blinding thing. You know, like once someone is entrenched in something for reasons that aren't just pure stubbornness, but do actually have like there are legitimate motives involved, then it's really, really hard to convince people, right? Now the problem is that I could make it so that he has to, right? Like, but if I don't want him to be mad, I'm gonna have to convince him. Otherwise, I can simply say like, no, it must get done, and I can like force him to trust my judgment, and then he'd be doing something. Yeah.
The Kum on this decision, it's the long game type of dynamic.
Yeah. So there is a long game too, because you know the guy.
I mean, by the way, like him pushing back and saying like, "Do you really need this now?" I do think that's like a completely appropriate. I don't know if he's just being lazy. Like this is where like.
Well, the problem is that the reason, it is a good reason. It is like a legitimate, like, tree in the dialogue chain, but the motive is actually tainted. It's not actually the reason.
Like, so okay, we need a physiognomy check. Is this guy like just look really lazy?
I'll put it like this: funny enough, physiognomy, and like in terms of like looks. Like if we're talking like Chad versus Chud, this is probably like literally like 10 out of 10 beautiful person. I'm not even kidding. Like, and not even in like the most like generic model way. But he does dress and act somewhat like a metalhead / stoner / druggie. Even if he isn't really like that, he does kind of have that aesthetic. So he's a very hard-working person who is temperamentally lazy, but still somehow isn't, at least in practice. What I'm saying is that if he can be lazy, he will be. It's often not really in a position to be lazy.
Is he working on something else that can be justified as being more important, though?
That's the thing, is like, yes, he is a busy person. He's in charge of the warehouse, the shop. Like, whenever anything needs to get done, like, I need to get the water jet going, I need to get he's got 4 other things he has to worry about right now. So.
I don't know, I almost feel like this is going to be super autistic. I feel like you should be the extreme owner of this.
I really should, but the problem is that he is I own this kind of guy. He is very... very good at being greedy with ownership over
maybe that's the way you convince him, is you just start slowly hooking it up and then he gets like concerned, like, wait, that's my job.
I literally, like, I was literally asking him, can I please just open the boxes and look what's inside the boxes and like take stock of what's in there? And he's like, no, we'll leave that because we don't want to. He didn't say I'm not allowed to, but he says that I shouldn't.
Have you heard it's better to ask forgiveness than permission?
That's a philosophy that he would appreciate, but he would still be a little bit. I'd lose some brownie points. It's not like I necessarily need him.
Could you finesse this into like a bit of a meme? Like, I don't know if you have rapport with him, but could you somehow make this kind of funny that you want this set up and you're like slowly setting it up? Like I don't know, I feel like that might be a way to.
The meme is Ryan can't have the CNC.
And you're like, I'm just, you just like walk over there, just looking through this box. Just slowly setting it up. Good.
I see. Okay, I see what you're going for now. Yeah.
Depends on your relationship with this person.
Oh yeah, I have a very strong relationship with him. We're on very good terms. That's why I don't
He
want to step
sounds
on
like
his
a
toes
good
too much.
egg. He sounds like a good egg that is actually busy.
He is a good egg that is actually busy, and that's the problem, is that the motive is not poisoned, because like I said, like the motive is slightly poisoned, but there, like I said before, there are legitimate motives at play.
Sure.
There are legitimate motives, and there are.
And unfortunately for you,
he's
they
coming
are
up
like
with-
they are a little bit more indirect than maybe other goals.
yeah, it's talking about like indirect but important concerns versus direct but slightly less important concerns.
Yeah.
Like something which is.
But that's
rice
where your
is
word
indirect, but also
celery.
slice is important.
Your word celery is exactly how you've been able to finesse those outcomes your entire life.
I was thinking of not doing the word celery. I was thinking of actually making him 2. I was literally going to print out today, but I didn't have time. 2 bell curve memes. I was going to print them out as the competing arguments for the philosophy of the CNC. Bell curve meme A was that, oh, duh, we need the CNC. We need it up and running. We need to be able to make our own machine parts in-house, right? Midwit's all like, but you can use the machine shop, and real engineering is design first and construct later, and blah, blah, blah. If it's really good engineering, then you wouldn't have to have a CNC in-house, theoretically. And the genius is just like, yeah, we do need a CNC in-house. We just need access.
That'd be funny. Yeah, just without telling him, just post that on the machine and see what he does.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be positively received. What's up?
Hey, do you remember what I DM'd you about that project?
Yes.
Do you think Sega could help as well, or probably not?
I don't know if Sega has experience with finite element, but he could probably be helpful.
No, it's okay. I'll just stick with you then.
No, you should think.
Sorry
you should,
for yapping so much, Sanjay.
Sega's busy, but and so am I. But I'm sure Sega would appreciate.
I would appreciate it, but I cannot take on any new projects right now. It is impossible.
Nobody has time to do this.
Use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
No, I don't have the software for it.
Yeah, this is like notably the one thing that ChatGPT. Well, sorry, there's many things ChatGPT is not good at, but this is one of the things it's like particularly not good at, and might never be
Finite
good at
elements simulation.
if you believe in the peak Reddit hypothesis. But
Like
don't
I
want
don't
to
like
crack that one open.
if we assume PRH, isn't the peak Reddit hypothesis not necessarily the sum of the average is really the joined average of all possible Redditors?
Yes.
Yeah, the idea is that the Redditors end up pulling it down to the average Redditor.
No.
Because
what
in
I
order
mean
to be
is,
smart, it would have to disagree
no,
with
no,
Reddit.
that's not what I meant.
Isn't it peak in every dimension? It's like every domain of knowledge. I thought that's what it was. Like
Yeah,
it's the
that's
best
what I'm saying.
Redditor
Like,
at this, best Redditor at this topic, best Redditor at that topic. I thought that's
No. The simplest, most like core kernel of PRH is AI will peak. Well, I mean, peak Reddit. Then again, peak is kind of like just doesn't really belong in that phrase, but still, AI will gradually approach and asymptotically approach the intelligence of the average Redditor. Like
but
in
that's
general.
not
I
what an
disagree with
LLM
that.
even does.
I thought the whole time PRH was just that. It was just like we converged to just the best of the best at each topic.
It's just laws functioning against Reddit. So whether
Yeah,
you
like
think that's like it's
the
as
problem
good
is
as
that in
everyone,
order
or
to-
whatever.
The problem, and this is the reason I think Reddit is like the core thing of importance here, is that Reddit often very strongly disagrees with things that it shouldn't. And what I mean is like the Reddit will drag down in order to actually surpass Reddit, the model would have to begin disagreeing with Reddit. But since since Reddit represents such a strong attractor in that space, it's naturally gonna it's not gonna be able to go above that cap. It's kind of capped out.
But like writing it like, say you train even like a simple information retrieval system on Reddit without like LLM, you could still like use Reddit as the database, and you wouldn't have the average of a Redditor. you'd have
have
the
the best of
average
the best.
knowledge of a redditor in every subreddit. As
Well, yeah,
access to.
that would be a good way to maybe free yourself from PRH. Would be to stop weighting Reddit heavily in the general sense, and then post train on like find a way to
You're still missing the point, Sage.
sculpt the nooks and crannies of the model in
I
a
just
good
don't
way
know why
without
everyone's
letting the
getting
average
like
score.
too wrapped around the axle with like the average redditor versus like the smartest redditor. Like the whole point is that the whole point is that it's an asymptotic curve. There's a peak.
I would say that peak is not the average redditor. If you train a model on a data, like any like information retrieval system, you don't get the peak redditor. You get the peak redditor in all possible subreddits.
Yeah,
No,
I agree with Ditter on that one. I thought the
you're
PRH
both
this whole time was...
You're both quibbling over you're too microscopically focused. Look at the curve. If the peak Reddit hypothesis is incorrect, then your next node on that graph is fucking Einstein squared. It's Dario Amodei's country of geniuses in a data center. That's what you believe. That's what you have to believe. That's what an exponential curve implies. Right? We're just talking about which way does this curve bend?
Oh yeah, well I agree that it's like a sigmoid or something. There's definitely it's not exponential, that's for sure. But I guess Sagasauce was confusing me because he was sort of alluding to it being the average.
Yeah, peak is it's fundamentally a problem of what one means by the average redditor.
It's not even that. An information retrieval system would not, like, imagine an information retrieval system just like, you know, indexing Reddit.
Yeah,
if I search for, I could have a query that finds like 2 or 3 statements, like in male fashion device and female fashion device, and I could have a better understanding than the average person that only subscribes to male fashion device.
So I think it's best if PRH is not taken too literally. Clearly, I'll put it like this: it's best to go with the spirit of PRH in contemplating it rather than going with the letter of the law. Would you say that is a fair way to put it, Chewy? As the inventor of PRH.
I mean, it's like I don't want to rehearse my other comment, but like people are talking right now about the difference between the peak of Reddit and the average of Reddit. I mean, the difference there is like within this call, there is that gradient of intelligence. Like when you're thinking about an exponential curve, we're talking about 2 insignificantly disparate curves. That is completely antithetical to what the true believers of AI think. I think we're gonna get fucking Einstein squared. Like, I'm repeating what I'm saying.
There should be. I really think there should be 2 distinctions. You should have the weak and strong peak Reddit hypothesis. The weak Reddit hypothesis states that the average Redditor will be the average Redditor on Reddit trained will be like the current PRH that we're talking about. The strong PRH argument would be given instead of having the average subredditor, you say the peak of all possible subreddits with all possible information derived would be the strong Reddit hypothesis.
I think a better way to phrase it would be general versus specific PRH.
The weak case would already be disproven. I think the strong case would be the only one left.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously
there's information, but there's also thinking patterns.
That's fair.
I mean, you could take a step back and assume that we assume that the training, and like let's say like I'm only armed with like a Google interface-ish to Reddit. I could have more knowledge than a person only subscribing to one subreddit. That's why I don't. That's why I think there should be a peak in. There should be a PRH, the weak and strong PRH. That's why there's a distinction.
The thing is, I think the phenomenon which is most most strongly indicates a current manifestation of PRH is the fact that whenever you discuss like topics that are not very well known, or Yeah, which are very well known, but which have lobes, which are kind of like in the cutting. If you want to discuss the cutting edge of something, especially with ChatGPT, often what you have to do is you have to like first get the model to start like thinking about the well, not get it, but like what'll happen is you'll ask it a question about some field or some topic, and it will answer first with the sort of like Reddit tier like approximation, kind of full of like popular opinions kind of answer, and you'll have to actually cut through that in order to get to like the actual answer. And I'm not talking about like politically incorrect stuff here. I'm literally just talking about like basic, like there could be, you know, ideas about programming languages that the prevailing kind of Reddit tier answer is the first thing that comes out of the AI, and then you have to manually steer it away from that. But if it were just a bunch of agents, they'd never get past that. They would just be stuck on the tier 1, like Reddit tier, like popular answer. That is just kind of like a digestion of the truth, but not actually truthy enough to properly like reason with.
I have no idea how that related to what we were talking about.
Did you guys ever encounter in the Michael Crichton book, I forget if it was Andromeda Strain or which one he wrote, but he coined this idea of the Gelman amnesia effect?
No, I don't read his books.
You might have heard of it if I describe it, but the idea is like whenever you read the newspaper, you're like, wow, that's heckin' crazy. Wow, that's heckin' crazy. And then you read an article about something you're actually like very autistically aware of, and you read the article and you realize like the way they're describing it is retarded and like completely wrong. And so like the idea is I think like peak Reddit is kind of that, where if you're actually very knowledgeable about something, you notice immediately the Reddit tier response. But if you're not very knowledgeable about it, you're like, wow, this is heckin' amazing.
Basically, it is way too easy to actually the model. And the problem is like if the model really is supposed to be creating like the robo waifu like utopia, free communist, everything's free universe, then it can't just, you know, keep surfing that Reddit wave. It is going to have to break through past the Reddit barrier. That's it, the Reddit barrier. It's the barrier that it first throws up Reddit spokescreen, and you have to cut the barrier.
That still has nothing what I was saying.
I don't find like, let's call it like the Reddit, whatever the value of the asymptote is, whether that is the average or like the peak of every possible subreddit, which is probably closer to what like I intuitively think of. It really doesn't matter, because again, we're, like I've said 3 times now, like we're talking about like categories of curves, right? This is like saying like, oh well, is it like 2x squared or like 3x squared? It's like, no, is it x squared or x to the third power?
Like similar to Big O, where like it's like, well, how square is the average redditor? Is the asymptote at 10x the average redditor or 0.5x? But in reality, what we're talking about is 2 different universes, one with an asymptote and one that just continues on infinitely.
Yeah, or even not infinitely, like exponential, you know, whatever shape you want, quadratic, like.
So if we're talking like big R like notation, like is it Redditor like Redditor squared or like Redditor like is it LR?
Big R notation.
Big R rotation. It's
Is it like r/ like Bill Nye, or you know r/ Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I guess you know that's
okay,
a great
never mind.
So I think Chewy finally is getting, like, he's finally explained, at least to me, the sort of core of PRH, like the actual core, which is that PRH posits a R1 universe where the linear factor is irrelevant. If we're talking big O notation, if it's like O of n, notation. So like if it's big O, notation, it's useless to squabble over whether the algorithm is 100 times faster linearly or like 1,000 times faster or like 0.1 is slow. From the perspective of big O notation, they're all the same because they still have the same linearity as a factor, right? So if we talk, say, big R, big R notation, PRH posits R of 1. Or like,
if you assume, Sure, I mean big O of n for two equations that are essentially one n. One of them though has 100 times n, and one is 1n. Yeah, I mean asymptotically, they're like quote unquote the same. In real computer science, you always pick the one of them actually does grow really fast that you actually give a shit
That's
about.
a fair argument. That's a fair argument. It's like if you were going to go use a sorting algorithm that was, you know, we'll just call it log of n, right? Like ln of n, right? But it was like 100 times slower than the other one that was also ln of n, then you're not going to be like, well, it's still the same fact, you know, it's still log of n, so it's like the same. It's like, no, dude, use the one that's 1,000 times faster.
Yeah, but in that case, like Zitter, you're talking about small values of n, which, I mean, maybe you're making the argument that the maximum compute will get is bounded.
What do you mean by small values of n?
You've essentially implied a peak computation hypothesis that there is the asymptote will never even get that far out on the curve.
No, I'm just countering what Sega Sauce posit was. I mean, like, we see this even in Strasson's algorithm on matrix multiplication. The obvious one is n cubed. There was Strasson's algorithm is now used, even where it had this weird, like, O of n complexity. People thought we were never going to use it. The best one is n to the 2.737, but the factor associated with the n is like higher to the point where, well, they call it literally a galactic algorithm because right now they don't think it's feasible to implement. Of course, probably 100 years from now, given the obvious given the obvious matrix multiplication algorithms that we're using. I mean,
it's an algorithm that has an enormous linearity factor, but a theoretically smaller complexity factor.
You just said that, but yes. That we might actually be using it in 100 years. We might actually be using the galactic algorithm in 100 years when we're on like Martin's optical computer. I'm not joking about it either.
Well, if he has his optical computer, we wouldn't need to implement the algorithm at all.
No, you don't understand the importance of matrix multiplication still. You would have to, you'd always attack anything that would give you more efficiency, right?
My point here is that with optical computing, you don't need to really implement an algorithm like that. It would just be much, much, much faster than that still.
I would honestly say we should skip it this week if we're going after this.
Why do you make that assertion?
If it wasn't sweet.
If it wasn't
I'm killing it, I wouldn't be bored.
Roboting. Piece of
Sorry.
Am I roboting or is
it's me.